Coming at you with hard-hitting analysis of every fight on every UFC card, this is your source for everything you need to know for your daily fantasy MMA lineups. This is Daily Fantasy Knockout. Here's your host, Drew D.
Hey, we are back at it again for another episode of Daily Fantasy Knockout, breaking down UFC Fight Night 90, Dos Anjos versus Alvarez. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Josh Stonewall Stillman, and we're here together for episode 11. Josh, how we doing, man?
Doing great, man. Glad to be back in the saddle. Can't be more excited for this weekend. It's gonna be dope, super dope. One event hiatus, and now we're back for 3 in 3 days. It's gonna be off the chain. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it myself. There might be some issues with the Ultimate Fighter finale, depending on when DraftKings releases everything. But our goal is to get that one out for you. We're gonna come at you hard tonight, and we're definitely coming at you tomorrow with UFC 200, which we are super jacked up about. But we'll save all that hype for tomorrow. So let's dive right into UFC 90, Dos Anjos versus Alvarez. For those who are new to the podcast, what Josh and I do is we go through each fight, break down the fight as we see who's going to win, and we relate that to DraftKings, and we bring in Las Vegas odds. We do not look at the Vegas odds until we are broadcasting live right now, so we have no idea what Vegas thinks of these fights. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. I'm going to dive in first. The first fight of the evening is Vicente Luque versus Alvaro Herrera. So looking at the research for this fight, Vicente Luque, he's 8-5-1 in the UFC. He has 6 first-round finishes and a total of 7 finishes. 3 of them are by KO, 4 of them are by submission. He's got a really long reach for the welterweight division at 75.5 inches. This guy really comes forward. He likes to control the center of the octagon. He's accurate with his fists, and he has great timing. I kind of jumped the gun already. We're going to try to change up the format, so we're going to go with our picks first. At least I am. I'm going to go with Vicente Luque in this fight over Herrera, and I'm going to break down why. So as I said before, he's got a long reach advantage. He comes forward constantly. He controls the center of the octagon. He's very accurate with his fists, and his timing is impeccable. On the ground, this guy is unbelievable. He has crazy anaconda and darts chokes, which you don't see too often. Up against the clinch, or up against the fence in the clinch, he's very strong. Some of the places that he does struggle, though, is against wrestlers. He was taken down countless times against Michael Graves. I think it was like 5 times before they hit the halfway point of the fight. He's very defensively sound on his back, though. I will give him that. He struggles against the wrestlers, and if he does get taken down, he does a good job defensively on his back, but letting your opponent pile up all those takedowns isn't going to, score you well in the scorecards. Looking at Herrera, there's only one fight that I saw of his in the UFC. He's a boxer. He's 9-3 in his pro career. He fought a fellow tough competitor in Vernon Ramos, and he knocked him out in the 3rd round. He clearly has some power in his hands, but it's really tough for me to pick against Luque here. Herrera did have a nice KO win against Ramos, but what I saw, he looked a little raw. Might have got a little lucky on the exchange where he knocked out Ramos, and he lacks the experience that Luque does. I see Luque pushing the pace of this fight. I think he has a slight edge in the stand-up, and definitely on the ground. I think he's going to win this fight early by submission. I throw in a bunch of GPP lineups in those low-dollar entry fields, so I'm probably going to have some of Herrera in there, but not too many. I'm going to go with the Black Zillion Luque on this one, and I think he wins this fight early via submission.
That's your odds right here, man. That Vegas definitely agrees with you. Well, first of all, DraftKings, Luque is 10,900, and Herrera is 8,500. And odds have Luque might be the heaviest favorite on the card, which is like pretty crazy to me. Anyway, but I guess you agree. Luque is minus 450 and Herrera is plus 360. What do you think of those odds? Does that seem right, or is that too much?
I it might be a little too much, but I really do think if I'm picking one of these guys to win, it's going to be Luque to finish the fight early. I just don't trust Herrera. He's at one fight. It was 30 seconds long. Caught the guy, with one of the back of the ear punches, put him to sleep. He's got some power, but I like Luque in this fight. It's just kind of a gut feeling. I think he's the more all-around fighter. He has more experience, and that's who I'm going with.
Okay. Sounds good. What's the prop here? Yeah, they also like it's at the over-under is 1.5 rounds, and it's minus 125 to go over. So it's like almost a pick 'em to not even make it to the halfway point. So Vegas agrees with you. Pretty much all around.
All right, let's jump into fight number 2 of the evening. Marco Beltran versus Reginaldo Vieira. You want this?
Yeah. So we're doing our format now is pick first and then explain why.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense because the last time in our early episodes we kind of just said it kind of got redundant. Oh, he has good striking, he has good takedowns, this, that, the other. It's kind of boring and blah. So we want to be more definitive with our picks going forward, I think.
Okay, more to the point. I got you. All right, so I'm picking Vieira in this one. Vieira is a tough Latin America winner. He's actually he beat Delano Lopez, who's actually on this card also. And I think that was season 2 of Tough Latin America, and that was like almost a year ago. And this is both of their first fights since then, so it's, I don't know, kind of weird coincidence. But they both, Vieira and Lopez, who we'll get to later, have been out for about a year. So I like Vieira because he looks like a better he looks better all around. He was in a war with Lopez in their fight in the finale, and he showed off better cardio and much tighter striking than Lopez, and that's kind of what carried him. And Lopez also I'll get to him, talk about him a little bit later. He just kept jumping for the guillotine. So Vieira showed excellent submission defense, and that is probably Marco Beltran's best facet is grappling. Beltran looks really uncomfortable standing, but he also has pretty good submission attempts submission defense. In Beltran's fight with Marlon Vera, he had to fight off, I don't know, a half a dozen tight submission attempts, rear naked chokes, triangles, guillotines. He did a good job of avoiding those. He spent a bunch of time, sort of similar to Vieira. He spent a lot of time in top position because Vera was comfortable on his back going for submissions, and he ended up winning that fight by decision, even though he didn't do a whole lot. Beltran's really long and lanky, but he, in his I think his fight, one of his fights, I can't remember which one now, when he gets hit, he fires back with emotion is how I think one of the announcers put it. Might have been, well, anyway, doesn't matter. But he doesn't really look comfortable on the feet. His output is inconsistent, and so I think he's going to be at a disadvantage on the feet, and I think it's probably a wash on the floor. So I like Vera, and I like him to win by decision.
Okay, interesting. Let's take a look at Vegas odds. Beltran comes in at plus 120, and Vieira comes in at minus 150. Looking at DraftKings, where's Beltran? Beltran's 9,200, and Vieira is 10,200. So how do you think that plays out? The smart play in cash games, GPPs, are they the same? Are they different? What do you think?
Well, looking at the finish prop here, or like the over under, it's 2.5 rounds, and the over is at minus 210. So it looks like this fight is likely to go to a decision, and that's kind of how I see it. Unless Vieira were to like knock Beltran out standing, I think they both have pretty solid submission defense. So I think that it's probably going to go to a decision. So I'm probably not going to have a ton of exposure to these guys. I like Vieira, not like huge, but pretty significantly. So I might put him in I don't know. He doesn't have a ton of upside at 10-2 for like an over 10,000 price tag. He doesn't have a ton of upside, in my opinion. So maybe in cash, maybe a little bit in GPP, but I don't feel, I'm not going to be all on him. And Beltran at 9-2, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to be staying away from him. I think there's going to be cheaper options that are better than Beltran.
Okay, good stuff. We're going to move on now to a lightweight fight between Gilbert Burns and Lucas Sieski. This Burns guy, I think he's on the verge of being something special. He is my pick to win this fight. In fact, I'm very adamant that he's going to win this fight. One of my heaviest favorites, personally. He's a decent striker. One of his issues, though, is he doesn't like to fully commit to the striking department. He was in a war with Magomedov, and he struggled with the counterpunching of Magomedov. He wasn't really committing to his strikes, and he kind of left himself open to be picked apart in that department. His striking isn't elite, but it's average and it's accurate. It's doable, and you can only assume that it's going to get better over time. He tends to be a little bit predictable when he's attacking with his hands. Same situation when he fought Cowboy Oliveira. He got peppered with counter punches, just like he did with Magomedov, because they kind of read his patterns on what he was going to do. In the grappling department, in the ground department, he's a 4-time world BJJ champion. This guy's a submission specialist. He took down Magomedov immediately in their fight, early in the first round, and that's of significance because Magomedov owns a 91% takedown defense. He's very, very strong. He had the same effortless takedowns against Charles Oliveira early in their first round. One thing I did notice, it might be a maturity thing. He tended to play into Oliveira's game a little bit and try to stand with him. He needs to commit to the takedowns in his fights because he dominates on the ground. Finally, after he was being picked apart on the feet by Oliveira, he finally got him to the ground. He threw together some wicked submission attempts, and late in the third round, he tapped out Oliveira with an armbar, which was Oliveira's first time he was finished on the ground in his career. Looking at Sieski, not too much on him that I saw. He's a smaller fighter than Burns. He's a really high-paced fighter. He shoots in for his strikes, but he likes to stand up tall. He leaves himself very, very wide open for takedowns and hard counters. And as he gets tired, he dips his chin a lot as he as he steps into his striking game. The only fight I saw him in was against Nick Hein. It was his UFC debut. He defended one half-ass takedown from Nick Hein, but there was no real other footage of him on the ground. And based on his willingness to stand and bang it out, I think it's kind of indicative of his lack of ground skills and his desire to be on the ground. So with that said, I'm going Burns everywhere in this one. I see him learning from his previous fights. I think he's going to push the pressure with his strikes and counters, and I think he's going to take Sieski down and tap him out in under 2 rounds. Like I said, he's a 4-time BJJ champion. He is elite on the ground. Burns has fought much tougher competition. He subbed out Cowboy Oliveira. He was in a solid war with Magomedov. He's been on this stage before. He's the bigger fighter, and I think he takes out Sieski in under 2 rounds.
All right, bold prediction.
Yep.
All right, so Vegas agrees with you. Burns is at -240, and Sieski is at +200. And Burns is 10,800 on DraftKings, and Sieski is 8,600. And the over/under is 2.5 rounds, and it's at -170 to go over. So for 10-8, you like Burns? Think he's worth it?
Absolutely. I'm going to play him in cash. I'm going to play him in GPPs. I'm going to touch on some of the higher priced fighters as we go on in this podcast, but I think he's the better fighter. I think he finishes the fight. Yeah, so I'm going to pay up for that 10-8, and I'm going to be very confident doing it.
Okay. So you're staying away from Sieski probably.
Yeah, probably going to totally fade him.
Okay. All right. Good enough. All right, so next up, we got – who do we got?
Felipe Arante and
Yeah.
Jared Sanders.
Yeah.
Gerard Sanders.
Yeah. All right. So this is a close fight to me. It's a very interesting fight in my opinion because both of these guys have paths, like pretty clear paths to victory. It's just going to be about who is able to implement it, and they're very, very different. So I'm picking Sanders in this fight, but I don't feel super confident in that pick at all. I think Orantes is by far the better fighter, but he's had issues with consistency and fight IQ in the past. Shoot, I'm trying to remember here. Sanders fought a dude that we're going to talk about again later. This is another one of those. He fought Russell Doan, who we're going to talk about later.
He's next, yeah.
Yeah. So Doan was slicing up Sanders on the feet, but he kept being willing to engage with him in a grappling battle. And Sanders is a former All-American wrestler at Oklahoma State. So that is his only plus skill set, in my opinion. He's a good wrestler. He's jacked for 135. And that's basically it. He's not comfortable exchanging on the feet at all. Every time he throws, his striking technique has improved, has looked better of late, but anytime that someone's throwing at him, he's looking for a takedown right away. Orantes is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu and a black belt in Muay Thai. So what he should do is just worry about all that he really needs to worry about from Sanders is the takedown. So if he can get away from the takedown and light him up on the feet, it should be his fight to win, and I think that he could finish him. But I'm trying to remember who these guys fought. Orantes, he lost a winnable fight for basically the same kind of reason. He was willing to engage it was with Andre Fili, I think. He kept willing to engage in this grappling battle, trying to throw up submissions from his back while Fili's punching him in the face from top position. And it was he was doing much better on the feet. I don't know that he was had a clear advantage over Fili, but that was the way that he was going to win. Not trying to grapple with him. So the fight will go probably one of two ways. I see Orantes either beating up and probably finishing Sanders on the feet, or Sanders grinds out a decision because he doesn't really have much offense, even in terms of top position. He doesn't have really hard ground and pound. Really, he's the one thing that he does do well is he doesn't have good back takes. He took Russell Doan's back a bunch of times, and Doan's a pretty solid grappler, but he didn't look like he had very good grappling technique, or I guess submission technique. He wasn't he wasn't getting his hooks in when he had the back, so Doan kept escaping, and he looked like he could have finished a choke a couple of times and didn't. Doan wasn't defending, wasn't hand fighting. Sanders basically had free range, just lock the choke up, and he wasn't doing it. So I think that Sanders is probably going to grind out a decision. That's my pick here, but I don't feel awesome about it at all. He could definitely get lit up on the feet. So you want to run down the price then?
Yes, sir. All right. Sorry, guys. All right, Felipe Arante is 10,600 and Gerard Sanders is 8,800. Interesting. Let's see what Vegas has him at. Felipe Arante is minus 160 and Gerard Sanders is plus 130. Did I hear you correctly? You like Sanders in this fight?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's some salary relief for you. More of a cash game play? You don't see the upside of a finish here? Is that what I'm getting?
No. Yeah, definitely not. Yeah. For under 9K, the odds are pretty close. So, yeah, I can see playing Sanders and cash. He's got for under 9K. I think that, like I said, I like him to win. But also, like I said, I don't feel great about it. I think Arantes he's GPP all the way. He's 10-6. He could end up, fighting off of his back for most of the fight and not get you very many points. But he could also smash Sanders in the face. Sanders got finished in the first round in his first two fights. One of them got overturned to a no contest. So at this point, he won his last fight against Doan. So he's 1-1. But he got finished in the first round in his first two fights. So That could definitely happen again. Yeah, but I don't really see Sanders finishing Oronte, so probably not a GPP play for him.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. I love it. Let's move on to the next fight. Russell Doan, who we were just talking about, against Pedro Munoz. I kind of struggled with this fight, so I'm going to kind of bring Stillman in on this one. But I really like Munoz in this fight, and here's why. Looking at his striking, he's light on his feet. He uses his front kicks to keep distance at bay. He tends to be a slow starter, like some fighters, but once he gets hit, he really gets going. I think he has legit power in his hands. He was fighting Jimmy Rivera, and he was a little bit tentative in the striking department against the polished boxer. Jimmy Rivera is a polished boxer. He was a little bit afraid of the counter. I kind of got peppered in exchanges. One of his best attacks, though, he gets in close in the pocket, and he has this lead elbow, and it really throws off his opponent. Like I said earlier, though, as the fight goes on, he seems to get better and better. His gas tank is never, ever in question. When he was fighting Rivera, he got worked over in the first round, but in the second and third round, he got lighter on his feet, he got more comfortable on his feet, and he brought the fight from rounds 2 and 3. Looking at his grappling and his ground game, he wants to take this fight to the ground. He has a nasty guillotine. He looks for it as every chance he gets. He throws the guillotine as many chances as he can. Defensively, he's a good wrestler, and he has a really good sprawl to prevent the takedowns. Looking at Russell Doan, he trains out of Hawaii Elite MMA. He's been out of the octagon for a year. He throws hard kicks and these swinging hooks. He most recently fought Alcantara, and in my opinion, he was outclassed on the feet the entire fight. Looking at his grappling and his wrestling, his submission threats, and chime in on this if you want to, Stillman, because you know more about Doan than I do. He's an opportunistic submission threat. He might be better than the blue belt that he holds. He's got hard ground and pound when he gets good position. He's a decent wrestler, but too often he's content with just, like you said, grappling and wrestling with Sanders in his last fight, and it cost him. He does look for the takedown quite a bit. He was in top control over Alcantara, and he was very, very comfortable. He looked good. He has a good shot, a quick shot. He does a good job of muting attacks, muting the attack of his strikers. But what I saw when he was on his back, it was quite painful for me to watch. He made a few rookie mistakes against Alcantara, and it almost cost him the fight early. Do you have any other inside info on Doan? Because this was kind of a hard fight for me to choose, to be quite honest with you.
No, I was just going to say about Munoz real quick. It was Munoz who actually knocked out Sanders in the first round and then got the fight overturned. I forget what happened exactly.
He tested positive.
For steroids, or was it
like
marijuana or something?
I believe it was steroids. I just looked at it this afternoon.
Oh, really? Dang. Yeah, he lit Sanders up. Anyway, yeah, with Doan, I mean, he's a blue belt, but he submitted a black belt in his UFC debut with a triangle. So, but yeah, I guess it would kind of come down to, I mean, you looked at Munoz more. I didn't really look at Munoz other than him smashing Sanders. So I think it's probably a really close fight. Yeah, I'm not really sure how to gauge this one.
I like Munoz. I think he's a better fighter all around. And so we'll go back to the pick, I guess. I'm all about Munoz in this fight. I think he has a slight advantage on the feet.
Okay.
Once the fight gets going, he's got to get his ass in gear, though. But I see this being a ground battle. I could see him taking this fight to the ground and edging out Doan via decision. This does have potential to be a boring fight. I don't really see a finish in this fight, but I am picking Munoz because that's the point of the show. We're going to pick somebody, so I'm going to pick Munoz in this fight via decision.
Okay. Looking at the odds, Vegas agrees with you. Munoz is minus 240, and Doan is plus 200. Munoz is 10,400, and Doan is 9,000. And the odds, the over-under, is 2.5, and the over is minus 165. So how do you feel about those prices?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty accurate, I would say. I thought they might be a tad bit closer, but I don't know if I'm going to touch this fight, to be quite honest with you. Maybe the random GPP dart I'll throw. Like I said, I'm not super confident in either one of these guys. I like Munoz to win the fight. But do I see him finishing the fight? No. He's kind of in that mid-range for me. 10,400, I kind of expect a finish.
Yeah, you want the upside at least.
Huh?
You want that upside at least. You want that possibility. And fight sounds pretty close. So I'm not sure that we get it here. What do you think about Doan at only 9,000? You think throwing him in cash for super cheap? Fight's supposed to go the distance, probably close fight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's close. It's a close fight on the card or in Vegas. Like you said, $9,000. That's a steal in DFS, and he has the opportunity to win. So I wouldn't feel too bad about either one of these guys in either format. But if I'm making one lineup and I had to pick one of these two, I'm going to lean Munoz.
Even with the big price difference?
Yep, I'm going to take Munoz. If I was only allowed to make one lineup and I had to pick this fight, I would take Munoz.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. What do we got next?
Anthony Burchak versus Delano Lopez.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this fight's going to be crazy. Okay, so I like Burchak in this fight, even though he got just killed by not Ricardo Almeida. Thomas Almeida in his last fight. Oh man, it was brutal. The knockout was just ugly. But he's very aggressive, and so is Lopez to some degree. But I think that Burchak has more weapons here. He's long, but doesn't do a really great job of fighting long. He's just throwing nonstop. He's just nonstop offense. He hits harder. He's more diverse in his attack. And Lopez, the thing that got him in trouble against Vieira in their fight in the tough finale was that he loves going for the guillotine. He's got a whole bunch of wins by guillotine. So I think that's the main thing that Burchak needs to look out for, and he knows that he should, because I think in his last fight alone, Lopez went for 3 or 4 of them. And he couldn't finish Vieira, and so he ended up on his back getting pounded. I mean, and Lopez also has a problem with his fight IQ. He was trying to punch from his back, and I don't know. Maybe he wanted to make a good impression. It was as the fight was ending, maybe he wanted to make a good impression, but he ended up getting smashed in the face a whole bunch of times because he's not defending himself. So Lopez is a pretty good grappler, but he is, like I said, too consistent, too eager to go to his back. He likes to throw bombs in the pocket, which is going to be right up Burchak's alley. He works the body pretty well. Like I said, I think that Lopez is like I said, I think Burchak has more weapons. I think he hits harder. Burchak has, in terms of the wrestling battle, I think that Lopez would probably have an advantage. You could get the fight to the ground, and his shots that were working against Vieira were reactive ones. When he could time a good reactive takedown, he hit it pretty well, and so that could serve him against Burchak. Burchak has Division II wrestling credentials, so he's I think he's going to try to use that in reverse to stay off the ground as much as possible with Lopez. So I like Burchak in this one, and I definitely think this fight could be a finish. I see Burchak finishing it in the first round by TKO. That's my pick.
Right. Interesting. Let's look at Vegas. Burchak is a -260 favorite, and Lopez is +200. The over-under is at 2.5, and it's favored to go over at -180. Looking at DraftKings, Burchak, the favorite, is 10,700, and Lopez is 8,700. So you think Burchak is a first-round finish?
I like him too. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm picking. I mean, I don't. Obviously, those Vegas odds disagree with me in terms of the over/under, but both these dudes are super wild and aggressive, and Burchak has some nasty power. He smashed Joe Soto in their fight. None of Burchak's 3 UFC fights have left the first round. He got heel hooked by Ian Entwistle, which is what Ian Entwistle does. He's just a heel hook machine. He got knocked out by Thomas Almeida, and then he knocked out Joe Soto in the first round. So Burchak is a killer to be killed type of dude, and Lopez, I think, is going to be willing to oblige him. So, yeah, I like Burchak. I think this is this is a GPP fight for me, I think. I'll have exposure to both of them since I like Burchak to get that win. He's minus 250 or thereabouts. I think that for 10-7, I think he's definitely in play. And Lopez at only 87, yeah, you could definitely throw him into lineups, into some GPPs as well. Like I said, I think his path to victory lies more on the ground. If he's able to hit reactive takedowns consistently on Burchak, as Burchak is like constantly coming forward trying to throw, I think that he could end up getting a submission or stealing a decision. So, but I don't like him in cash at all, even though he's like super cheap because he could get murked in the first round. So, yeah, that's my take on this fight.
All right, buddy. It sounds good. Let's move on to the next fight. John Makdessi versus Mehdi Baghdad. I'm going to go talk about this fight, and where is it? Oh, I didn't even make a pick on this fight. I'm going Makdessi in this fight. He is coming in losing 2 straight to Yancy Medeiros and Donald Cerrone. This is a must-win scenario for Makdessi. He's a black belt in karate. He has changed camps for this card. He has left Montreal TriStar-based camp for Tai Long Muay Thai Gym in Montreal. He likes to lean heavy on his left leg. So I don't know why I'm going through one of his downfalls. Hold on. All right, yeah. So I got lost in my research here. The lead jab is one of his best attacks. He mixes in counter striking while pressuring his opponents quite a bit. He's not the most explosive, though. He does like a lot of spinning attacks, but he has a tendency to load up on his hips and telegraph some of his spinning attacks. His range, his ability to judge range against his fighters or against his opponents is very solid. He's an all-around fighter, in my opinion. He isn't the most flashy, but he's solid in every single department. Some of the issues that I see in him, he leans heavy on his left leg as an orthodox fighter. So kickboxers and Muay Thai guys are going to eat this left leg up. Example A would be Donald Cerrone. He destroyed him with kicks and ended up breaking his jaw with a head kick in the second round and TKO'd him. And that's got to have some mental setbacks for you, you know. But anyway, he tends to plod forward a little bit in front of his opponent. The announcers during his fight, he lost to Yancy Medeiros. In my opinion, he got robbed. He did enough to win that fight. He was pushing the pace. So I don't really count that as a loss. I think the judges robbed him on that one. But at the same time, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't like a completely dominant performance for him. So looking at Baghdad, he only has 1 fight under his belt. It was a first-round loss to my dude, Chris Wade. Everybody knows that I love Chris Wade. He was choked out in the first round, but he was a late replacement. So I really do not have much information for you guys about his striking or his grappling. His ground game, though, he does a really good job of tying up his opponents on his back. He has really long legs. And using those legs, he can tie up the arms. He presents a lot of blocks, and he's very good defensively off of his back. He has solid wrist control. He's really crafty. And you can just tell by watching the limited footage that he had, he's very calm and experienced on his back. That being said, I'm going with Makdessi because of the experience. I'm not too confident in this pick because I haven't seen enough on Baghdad. But with the change of camp and the all-around skill that Makdessi has, I'm going to go with him in this fight. I wish I could have more research for you guys, but
some flavor in your break.
Hang on 1 second. Sorry, I think it was like
Time for
some kind of ad or something on the computer. That was weird. Okay, sorry.
it's all good. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I think Makdessi wins this fight. I don't think he's an explosive or super exciting fighter, but I think he grinds out this fight via decision. Do you have anything about Mehdi Baghdad? He lost quick to Chris Wade, and that's all I saw of him.
Was he on Tough? I think he was on Tough.
Yeah, I think he was, but I didn't go back and look at many of his fights, to be honest.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, he probably didn't look good against Wade because Wade's a wrestler.
He was on McGregor's team.
Yeah. I think he's a kickboxer too, mostly.
Well, you know what? That being said, I'm looking at something right now. He has a 24-4 record in Muay Thai and K1, so that might change my opinion right there. Because Makdessi's going to lead heavy with that left leg, and he might get chewed up by Baghdad. So Baghdad might not be a bad punt play for some salary relief. Without looking at Vegas odds, I'm looking at DraftKings prices right now. Makdessi's 10,500 and Baghdad's 8,900. I might throw Baghdad in there just based on his K1 and Muay Thai experience because Makdessi has struggled with that in the past. So that might be some salary relief that could pay off for you in GPP or cash games, depending on if you want to load up on the big dogs. What does Vegas have to say?
Makdessi is minus 140 and Baghdad's plus 120, so it's pretty close. And
Okay. In my opinion, in MMA, if it's minus 150 plus 120, something like that, I consider that a coin flip, 50-50. So I'm kind of going back on my prediction here. I'm going to go with Baghdad in this fight. I'm going to take the underdog here. On a whim. I haven't seen much of his footage, but I'm going out on a limb here. Baghdad's going to win this fight. He's going to chop down the leg of Makdessi and probably send Makdessi away from the UFC, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, the over-under is 2.5 rounds, and it's minus 200 to go over. So in a fight where both guys probably want to strike and probably going to go the distance, apparently, going to Vegas, what do you I mean, like, I think you got to like Baghdad, even if you didn't, like, want to pick him. I think you got to like him as a play, right? Minus under 9,000 in a striking battle. It's probably going to go the distance. And he could end up stealing you a decision. So I think you definitely play him in cash for sure. You're probably going to be staying away from Makdessi. What do you think? What do you think about picks here?
Yeah, I don't know if Baghdad's going to finish Makdessi. Makdessi's pretty tough. But if in a cash game you're looking for a low salary relief guy that could steal you a decision, Baghdad's probably going to be your guy. I think he has a really good matchup against Makdessi. It's a coin flip in Vegas. And I'm really harping on Makdessi struggling against Muay Thai fighters and kickboxers, and Baghdad clearly is experienced in that department.
That's, to be fair, isn't that Makdessi's background himself? Isn't he a kickboxer or taekwondo guy or something like that?
What was I just looking at? He's a black belt in karate. Well, he left TriStar Gym, and for this camp, he trained at a Muay Thai gym. But watching all of his fights and his orthodox stance, he leans really, really heavy on his left leg.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for Muay Thai fighters and kickboxers, just like Donald Cerrone, they're going to break that thing down.
Mm.
They're going to beat it up.
The camp switch is another thing. Like, you think
probably
getting away from TriStar and Wizard Faraz Sahabi is probably not going to help you, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, this card's I guess this card as a whole, there's a lot of closer fights than we've had in the past. But I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to take Baghdad in this fight. I think he ekes out a decision.
Okay. All right. Cool. So next fight, we got the ageless wonder, 40-year-old Mike Pyle going up against Alberto Mina.
Quicksand.
Quicksand, yeah. Yeah, so this might be my pick for fight of the night. I'm trying to remember Mina's 2 fights. He fought I don't want to say his name wrong. Enzai, maybe?
Akiyama and Enzai.
Yeah, thank you. Shinzo Enzai. So in that fight, he was just like super crazy aggressive. That was his first UFC fight, and he hit Enzai with an uppercut like hard a couple of times, rocked him, and eventually put him away. And then he came out much more measured in the Akiyama fight. Mina, I think his best facet is probably grappling, but his wrestling is pretty bad, and he doesn't do a good job of transitioning between wrestling or between grappling and striking. And he's taking on Pyle, who's like the quintessential, like seasoned, crafty veteran. The thing with Pyle that he's got to look out for is that he's 40, and he has shown a susceptibility to getting knocked out in the first round a few times. So if the Mina who came out against Enzai, just like guns blazing, comes out against Pyle, Mina's chin is probably better. He's like younger, obviously, doesn't have as much mileage on him, and so his chin would probably hold up in a straight up like brawl like that. But I don't think that he's probably gonna do that. Let me see here. So, and Pyle's also very, very good on the ground. He's got, I think most of his wins are by submission, and he's got his power is underrated or sneaky. I guess people don't realize how powerful his striking is until he puts you away, which is what he did in his last fight against Sean Spencer. So I think that he's going to need to survive some like harrowing moments against Mina's power, but I don't think they're going to be as often as they would be if Mina came out like in his last fight, like he did in his fight with Enzai. So I like Pyle to. Sorry, I didn't do the pick first in this one, but I like Pyle to win by ground and pound stoppage in the third. I think that he's going to have. I think he's going to have the advantage on the ground because his wrestling is better, and submission for submission, it might be kind of a wash, but I think his power from top is going to carry him here.
All right, let's take a look at Vegas. Alberto Mina is plus 100, and Mike Pyle is minus 130. Looking at DraftKings, Alberto Mina is 9,500 and Pyle is 9,900. Did I hear you correctly? You think Pyle finishes this fight?
Yeah.
For 9,900.
That's my pick, yeah. Huh?
For 9,900, I don't know. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't hate it. Yeah, I mean the over under here for rounds is 1.5, and it's minus 175 to go over that, but that tells you that like I said, a later finish is kind of what's expected here. And so, yeah, there's risk there. Pyle's 40, so I don't think that you should have a ton of exposure to him. But this is probably a GPP play for me. Trying to think here about cash. Yeah, this is probably more of a GPP play. There's probably safer guys than Mina for less, and Pyle himself is definitely not super safe because of his age, mostly, and his chin. But yeah, I think this is a GPP play. I'll have exposure to both, I think, would be smart, given that it's likely to finish. But yeah, like I said, I like Pyle, and for under 10K, that's pretty sweet.
All right, I love it. I love it. Let's move on to our next fight of the evening. Joe Duffy versus Mitch Clark.
I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this one.
Are you educated? What do you
I mean, I just know Duffy's like, despite losing to Poirier in his last fight, is pretty highly touted. So I was kind of curious. I don't know a ton about Clark, so just kind of curious to see how you think he matches up.
Okay. Well, Joe Duffy is an elite boxer. He took 3 years off of MMA to be a boxer where he was undefeated. He's an orthodox fighter. He throws a really quick jab from his hips. He keeps his hands low, which isn't normal, but at the same time, in his advantage, that jab and those hands can come from crazy different angles, which really throws off his opponents. But as every boxer with the standard boxing stance, their lead leg is always an issue. It leaves him open to being chopped down, and it could adversely affect his movement and slow him down. Looking in the wrestling and the grappling department, Dustin Poirier dominated him on the ground. He ate hundreds and hundreds of elbows. Even though he was dominated, he seemed fairly comfortable. He kept trying to maintain wrist control. He threw up submission attempts, but he was dominated at the end of the day. He's got a solid submission game. He's finished 9 of 14 of his fights via submission. He's got a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But he's yet to shoot for a takedown in the UFC, which is kind of interesting for me. He's an all-around fighter. He's got a ton of hype behind him. I think he's the second to last fighter to beat Conor McGregor before they were in the UFC. So he's always touting about that. Looking at Clark, he's fighting out of Canada. Every single fight in his UFC career, he's been a big underdog. He's an all-around fighter. Nothing about his game really stands out as being magnificent. He likes to keep southpaw fighters at bay with his kicks, which could work in his favor against the boxing stance. He fought John McGuire and pretty much eliminated John McGuire's aggression by beating down the front leg, his lead leg, which, again, could be beneficial versus Duffy. As he does kick that lead leg and chop it down, he does an excellent job of moving his head to deal with the counter punching. He limits his opponent's offense with his pace, so he keeps the pace up. He's always up in their face. His pace is ridiculous. He's always throwing constant knees, punches, stomping on the feet, everything just to get touches on the body and touches on his opponent up against the fence, standing in front of each other. He kind of reminds me of a Clay Guida, but like more talented. He's just go, 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 go all the time. On the ground, he's got an excellent Kimura. He's really, really good defensively on the ground. He fought Alaquinta, and he handled him on the ground fairly well. He was always looking for submissions off of his back. In the other departments of the fight, though, against Alaquinta, he was completely outclassed. Alaquinta kind of screwed up, and he tried to pass half guard, and Mitch caught him and choked him out via Darce choke in the second. He does a really good job at changing levels. Let's take a look at Vegas. Vegas has this fight at Joe Duffy's a minus 400, and Mitch Clark is plus 300.
Did you make your pick yet?
No. Let me get there. This is the payoff. Joe Duffy's 11,000, and Mitch Clark is 8,300. Before I looked at that, I wrote my pick out, and I'll read it to you guys. I'm guessing Vegas is going to lean Joe Duffy on this one pretty heavily, but I think it's closer than they predict. Mitch Clark is used to being the underdog. He goes, and I think the matchup works in his favor. And I'm going to go with the upset here. Duffy struggled with the ground game and the top control of Dustin Poirier, and I see Clark pushing the pace, attacking that lead leg of the boxer, keeping him guessing. I think Clark takes us to the ground, handles business, and I think he ekes out a decision in this fight.
Very interesting. So, I mean, that's a safe pick for your stone.
Absolutely. That's going to be my stunner. But I'm going to 100% have some exposure to both of these fighters. But I think the crowd's going to be heavy on Joe Duffy, and I'm hoping I think Mitch Clark has a shot in this fight. I really do.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Duffy's takedown defense and
he's taken down 100 times versus Poirier. Poirier dominated him.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like Clark as what, like cash or in both? Because I mean, he's 83, so
He could be, yeah, definitely in cash games, without a doubt in cash games. Even in GPPs, I don't see him getting the finish, but for 8,300, if he's going to rack up 75 points or 85 points for a win, I'm going to take it.
you think that he can get that high with? I mean, he's probably going to be grappling a lot with.
Yeah, okay, fine. 56 points, 55. For 8,300, I think he's going to win when the majority of the field's going to be on Duffy.
Right.
So,
but you got to have some Duffy in GPPs.
yeah, I'm going to throw some Duffy in GPPs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's his hands are nasty, so.
Oh yeah, the guy's super talented. Not often do I make these ridiculous bold claims, but I just, based on the footage I've seen with Clark, I think he has a really good shot, and he's always the underdog, and I'm going to go with him on this fight.
Nice. All right, I like it. All right, so next up we got Alan Juban. Guy's probably only slightly less good looking than myself. And Bilal, remember the name Muhammad. So this is an interesting fight. I like Juban in this one.
20% skill, 15% concentrated power and will.
Yes, I think
5% pleasure, 50% pain.
Who was that? Is that the Linkin Park singer guy?
Something to remember the name. No, it's Fort Minor, dude. Get with the program.
I'm pretty sure he's whatever. I think whatever. I don't know. Anyway, nice reference. Yeah, like I said, I like Alan Joban. I think that's how you pronounce it. I like Joban in this fight. Muhammad isn't really known as a finisher. He in his last fight he did finish Steve Carl for the Titan FC welterweight title, but it was in the 4th round. And after he was like kind of beating up Carl on the feet for like most of the time, that was a big win for him. Carl was on that season of Tough between the Black Stallions and American Top Team, and he kind of like underwhelmed there. He was a former like World Series of Fighting champion, and then he couldn't even break into the UFC, so that had to be like disappointing for him, I'm sure. But he's a solid fighter for sure. He just couldn't get Muhammad to the ground and ended up getting beat up on the feet a whole bunch. And so Joban is going to oblige him on the feet. That's where Joban likes to be. He's super aggressive, has the nastiest elbows ever. So I like Joban because Muhammad looked like kind of like a basic like meat and potatoes type striker. Not anything too flashy, not anything super powerful. He just kind of pot shots. It's like kind of a constant stream of pot shotting. He'll do like 1-2, jab, leg kick. He doesn't like string together long combinations, but he's just like against Carl anyway. He was just hitting him more or less constantly, and that's eventually wore him down. It took him like 18, 19 minutes to finally get him out of there. Well, Joban is kind of the opposite. Not necessarily the opposite. He does string together his combinations much better or much more consistently, I guess. And he is very dynamic. We've seen some of his finishes have been crazy, like standing, knocking a dude down with standing elbows. So he'll have to be kind of careful because he sometimes charges in face first, so he's like open to getting countered. But Muhammad's not really, like I said, not really known as a one-hit quitter. So I think Joban's more diverse, dynamic striking is going to win the day here, and I think that he takes a decision over Muhammad.
Taking a decision for my boy Joban. You know I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that he has finished potential. Like I said, he is very dynamic. But Muhammad looked pretty tough, and I think he's undefeated. And striking is his area, I think. So I think that he's going to be losing, but I think that he can hold his own enough to see the final bell. But I definitely wouldn't hate throwing Joban into some GPPs at all because of that dynamic finishing ability that he has.
All right, let's look at Vegas. Joban is -145. Muhammad is +115. That's a closer fight than I thought.
Yeah. I'm kind of like thrown by that a little bit. Like,
Who is this Muhammad guy?
he's making this is his UFC debut.
Wow.
Like I said, he just won the Titan FC welterweight title. He's undefeated at 9-0. So, but I think before finishing Carl in the fourth, he had decisioned his last 5 opponents or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what all the hate is about on Joban, or if everyone just loves Muhammad that much. Because Joban lost to got knocked out by Albert Tumanov. There's no not really any shame in that, because Tumanov is maybe the most dynamic striker in the division, perhaps. And he lost a close fight to Warley Alves, who I thought that he might have beat. Alves gassed toward the end of that fight, and Joban just kept punching him, but had I guess dropped the first 2 rounds. He almost got finished, I think, in the first. But anyway, whatever. Other than that, he's won his 4 other UFC fights and finished 3 of them. So yeah, I don't really know what the deal is with the hate on Joban, but I like him pretty significantly here. I think the line is kind of off. I think he should be a bigger favorite than that.
All right, let's look at DraftKings. Joban is 10,000 and Muhammad is 9,400. What do you think?
Like I said, I like Joban a lot. I like Joban a lot for that price. He's got finish potential, and I think this should be a pretty high scoring fight for as long as it lasts, because both these guys are strikers. Muhammad didn't. I don't think. I mean, he looked like he completely wanted to avoid the ground game at all costs against Steve Carl. So I haven't seen much of his ground game. He had really good takedown defense. Actually, no, he did have some takedowns against Carl. He had pretty good timing on his reactive shots, or maybe I watched one of his other fights and he was taking the dude down. But I think Joban is. I can't remember what his jiu-jitsu looks like, because most of his fights have been stand up. I mean, he was able to survive against Alves on the ground, who's very, very good. So anyway, I'm rambling. I like Joban. I play him in cash or GPPs for 10,000. I would definitely play him. I like him a good bit. I don't hate Muhammad either in cash for 9,400, and like I said, it being a striking battle that's supposed to go the distance. I don't think he's a terrible play, but I like Joban a lot. So that's sort of my take. Yeah.
All right, sorry about that.
Good.
Yeah. Let's move on. We ready to move on to our next fight?
Yeah.
All right. Co-main event of the evening: Derek Lewis versus Roy Nelson. This will be a quick analysis for me. You guys know what Roy is all about. He's got that overhand right. He does a really good job of shuffling his feet. He waits for his opponents to shoot out with that left hand to keep him at bay, and he comes right over the top with that counterhand right. He rarely gets finished on his feet. He has a reach disadvantage in this fight of 72 inches, and he absorbs a absurd 4.9 strikes per minute on the feet. Not going to get into the ground game. I do think he has an underrated jiu-jitsu game. You don't see it too often, but when Roy's on the ground, he's no slouch. I don't see that happening in this fight, but just want to throw that out there. Looking at the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, who's my dude, ranked number 12 in the UFC rankings. Roy Nelson's ranked number 10.
Do you follow Lewis on Twitter?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I mean, have you ever looked at his account? I mean, the dude's crazy. It's hilarious.
I need to start looking at him more then.
Yeah.
Looking at his striking, he's always moving forward. He throws huge power in his hands. He's a high output heavyweight, 3.9 strikes per minute at a 60% clip. Defensively, he's really good as a striker. He only absorbs 1.51 strikes per minute. He's a rangy striker. 79 inches is the reach, which is a huge advantage over Big Country. I haven't really seen his chin tested yet. Maybe you can speak on that. Nelson does offer one-punch knockout power. Looking at the ground game, if he gets his opponents to the ground, he's an absolute nightmare when he's on top. He throws heavy bombs. They're very accurate, and everything he throws, he's throwing to knock you out. Grappling, I think the key to beating Lewis is grappling him, taking away his distance, and clinching him up against the cage. When he fought Victor Pesta, Pesta had him up against the cage, and he was rendered useless. He was all over him. He didn't give him that time and space to strike. If he does take away if Roy does take away the space, the gas tank could be an issue for both of these guys. I just don't want this fight to be one of those third-round Kimbo Slice, Dadov 5,000, whatever the hell his name was.
Man, yeah.
Where they can't even stand and they're just throwing winging bombs.
Hey, man. Wife character said too soon.
What? Oh, shit! I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you're going to speak ill of the dead, man? That's messed up.
I was more speaking ill of Data. My apologies. Kimbo Slice was a personal favorite of mine.
Anyway, just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, why you got to do that, dude? Anyway, all right. This fight's a coin flip, in my opinion, without looking at the odds. Both guys are heavy-handed. Roy's going to look to establish that range with the overhand right. The Black Beast is going to pressure Roy and throw bombs. Lewis is a knockout machine, but Roy has only been put out twice in his career until now. I'm going to go with Derek Lewis to finish this fight in under 2 rounds via strikes. I think his power, his output, his reach is going to be too much for Nelson, who's getting up there in age. He's sloppy, and I think Derek Lewis puts him to sleep.
Interesting.
What do you think?
Yeah. I guess what I wanted to say real quick was I just was kind of thinking back on like how I had broken down Lewis before. Like in his fight with Gonzaga, I remember saying that he, like in my breakdown, I said that Lewis, at that point, had only gotten his knockouts from ground and pound. He hadn't knocked anybody out on the feet. And then, of course, what does he do? He turns around, knocks out Gonzaga on the feet. I think I said the same thing about Miocic, too, who had not really standing KO'd anybody before Arlovsky. I think that was kind of one of the things I said about him going into his fight with Arlovsky was that he needed to get the fight to the ground to probably get the knockout or get the finish or whatever. And look what happened then. He knocked out Arlovsky, and then he turned around and knocked out Fabrice Verdum. So I look like an idiot, basically, is what I'm getting at here. I guess with the heavyweights, anyone's capable of knocking anyone out on the feet. So with that said, I think the fight for me, I think, kind of hinges on how Nelson chooses to approach it. If he got called, I think he got called out by Lewis. Is that right, or did I make that up?
I don't know if he got called out, but I do agree with you on your theory there. Which Roy Nelson's going to show up? How does he attack this fight?
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to just sling bombs in the pocket, I mean, it's going to be a coin flip, like any heavyweight fight like that. But if he tries to wrestle, then he can have a lot more success. I think that his likelihood of getting the win would go up pretty significantly if he tries to wrestle and grapple Lewis. Lewis did manage to get off the ground against Gonzaga a few times, or at least once anyway. So I guess he's not totally unschooled there, but I think I'm with you. I think I like Lewis in this fight. But with that said, we can jump over to the odds and whatnot. Nelson is at -130 and Lewis is at +110. On DraftKings, Nelson is 9,800 and Lewis is 9,600. And the over-under is 1.5 rounds, and the over is at +155. So this is GPP all day, obviously, like most heavyweight fights, but this one is especially like that. What do you think about them for their prices? Who do you like? I mean, I guess you like Lewis a whole lot.
I do. And
cheaper, even.
I'm guessing that Vegas odds makers are having Lewis as the dog because of the caliber of fighters that he's run through. Gonzaga, Grabowski, Pesta, Jordan, Potts, Mitrione, compared to Roy Nelson, who's fought Rocheholt, Barnett, Overeem, Mark Hunt, Nogueira, Cormier. I think that's the discrepancy. But I think Roy's reaching the end of his career, and I don't know what the age difference is, but I just think Derek Lewis he's got too much power in his hands. He comes forward, he brings the pain. The only issue with him, in my opinion, because I think he has the advantage on the feet and on the ground if he's in top control. I don't see him getting taken down by Roy Nelson. The only issue is I haven't seen his chin tested yet. And in heavyweight fights, unfortunately, one shot can end this thing. So I wouldn't be shocked if Roy, squeaks out a knockout in this one. But I think the odds are because Roy Nelson's more experienced. He's fought higher caliber fighters. But Derek Lewis is my guy in this fight. I think he knocks him out.
Yeah. Lewis got knocked out by Matt Mitrione and Sean Jordan. So his chin isn't impenetrable by any means, but it was hook kicks against Sean Jordan, which is like pretty crazy. I mean, those are going to knock you out. And then Mitrione like barreled into him with like a forearm or something like that against the cage, and that's what put him out, I think. So, his chin might be pretty solid, but heavyweight MMA, if he eats one of Nelson's overhand rights flush, and he's going to sleep like pretty much any human being on earth. So good on that one?
Yes, sir. Let's move to that main event.
All right. Lightweight championship, Rafael dos Anjos versus Eddie Alvarez. So I like RDA in this fight pretty big. Alvarez has said some interesting things kind of going into the fight. I don't know how people are going to take this, but he said like there's no such thing as overtraining, which sounds pretty insane. Like most fighters can like have said before that like overtraining is a real thing, and they kind of like want to like not overtrain, whatever. Like Michael Bisping was talking about coming into his fight with his title fight with Rockhold in only 2 weeks' notice. He didn't have time to like overtrain like he normally does and have like all these injuries like he normally would. So that sounds pretty insane for Alvarez to say that this thing's overtrained. But in any case, I think he's kind of outgunned here against Dos Anjos, who has looked like one of the best fighters on the planet as he's smashed his way to winning the title. I think the interesting thing here will be kind of how the wrestling shakes out. Like if Alvarez is able to, I don't think that his wrestling is going to be good enough to kind of nullify RDA's Muay Thai like Nurmagomedov was able to do to him. I think that would be his like best chance to get the win, is like mix in takedowns as often as he can, because he's playing with fire on the feet. He's got good hands, Alvarez does. He's got good boxing for sure, decent power, but he had a lot of problems with Donald Cerrone's Muay Thai, like big problems. By the end of their fight, Cerrone probably could have finished it late because he chopped him down with leg kicks, and by the end he got a knockdown by leg kicks. Like he was totally chopped him down, and rather than have Alvarez stand back up for the last minute of the fight so he could like probably knock him down again, he Cerrone jumped on top of him, and Alvarez survived the rest of the fight, rest of the minute left in the round or whatever. But RDA probably has harder leg kicks than Cerrone, and there's 5 rounds here. So I think that bodes really, really badly for Alvarez. If the fact that he was able to get that he was getting chopped down by Cerrone, I think that's going to be bad news for him against Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos is also a southpaw, and so he's got wicked body kicks. Anytime, I guess, open stance. There's like an open stance between the fighters. Like when they're opposite stances, the body kick is a huge weapon for both guys, and that's really Dos Anjos' wheelhouse is those body kicks. Alvarez doesn't really kick a whole lot, so he's going to be at a disadvantage there. And Dos Anjos has obviously world-class jiu-jitsu as well if this thing does go to the ground for extended periods of time. I think, like I said, I think Alvarez's best chance is to try to wrestle and be in top position and grind out a win. That's probably his best chance. Otherwise, I see him getting finished. here. And I think that Alvarez or that Dos Anjos has shown pretty solid wrestling. I mean, he was able to take down Pettis pretty easily, but Pettis doesn't have really that great of wrestling. I'm trying to remember if Alvarez got taken down by Cerrone or not. I don't think so. Can't really remember. But in any case, like Alvarez had a much harder time, I guess, for a point of comparison, Alvarez had a much harder time taking Pettis down than Dos Anjos did. Dos Anjos was able to do it pretty easily, relatively easily. So in any case, I'm probably going to be on Dos Anjos pretty big here because he's got 5 rounds to work, and I like him to get a finish.
Okay. Well, you think Dos Anjos is going to get the finish? Let's see what Vegas has to say. Dos Anjos is a minus 350 favorite. Eddie Alvarez is plus 250 as a dog. DraftKings, Rafael dos Anjos is $11,000, and Eddie Alvarez is $8,600. So you like Dos Anjos in cash and GPPs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, the over-under is 3.5 rounds, and it's plus 115 to go over. So I guess the odds makers like this to maybe go about halfway, maybe a little bit more than that. But they think the finish is probably coming. My pick is that Alvarez goes down in late second round or early third. What do you think about, I don't know how viable it is here, but the common thing to do in cash is to stack the main event or stack the championship because they've got more time to work. So what do you think about that?
I think Alvarez is a gamer. He steps up in big fights. He always has. I would not hate that.
Yeah, he definitely has championship experience. I mean, he's gone the distance shitload in Bellator. So
yeah, it's an intriguing option. You're talking in cash games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I think there's a lot of – I think you could pay up for Dos Anjos, and I think that, like we discussed during the show, I think there's a lot of cheaper guys that are going to win their fights. So I might not technically do it on this card. It's an option, but I normally make one cash game per card and just ride with it in all my entries. It's an intriguing option, but I think I'm going to lean against that in this one because I do agree with you. I do think Dos Anjos is going to finish this fight.
Yeah, trying to decide. Well,
yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably less likely to stack it here because it's not favored to go the distance. Like a fight that
Cruz in favor.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably not gonna stack. I think it's probably smart to have. I think there's gonna be a lot of Dos Anjos in the field, so it's probably a good contrarian play to have a little bit of Alvarez and GPPs. If he's able to, we've definitely seen crazier things. Michael Bisping has been a weight champion. So
yeah, that's true.
So if Alvarez is able to land something flush, Dos Anjos has been knocked out before. He's been beaten before. So lightweight is super cutthroat. Most guys in the top 10 are capable of beating one another. So you probably need some exposure to Alvarez for sure. But yeah, all right, good. So shall we get to the bonus picks?
Yes, that wraps up our analysis of UFC Fight Night 90. As always, we go through bonus picks. We have a scoring system. We pick the lock of the night, the fight of the night, and the Stonewall stunner of the evening. We have a scoring system. If you get the lock wrong, you get -1. If you get it right, it's nothing. If you get the fight of the night correct, it's +1. And if you get the stunner right, it's +3. Currently, Diener and Stillman are tied at 7. So we'll start with the fight of the night. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I got one. Just one set. Yeah, just a quick recap. I think that score is right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to recap the previous cards. You can do that. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we missed the McDonald versus Wonder Boy card. So this is going back to a 199. Yeah. So my lock was Rockhold, so that didn't work out so well. But I did hit on my stunner, which was Jessica Andrade to finish Jessica Penne. So that's how I kind of like kept pace here. Your lock was Dominic Cruz, and he won. Your stunner was that Hendo would get KO'd and retire, so you whiffed pretty hard on that one. But
Pretty hard.
yeah, it's okay. And my Friday the night pick was Poirier Green. Your Friday night pick was Holloway Lamas, which very well could have. Did you see the end of that fight?
Yeah.
That was insane.
That was insanity.
I hope that, like, I think someone else did that in the last card. That needs to become like a thing where people just point at the ground and just throw bombs. That was amazing. But it got edged out in Friday the night by Kim Reyes, which was just a bloodbath. They just beat the crap out of each other for 12 minutes until Kim finally succumbed. That fight was insane. I think it's really funny that Friday the night is one of our like bonus picks because I'm pretty sure that neither of us have hit on it once yet.
Yeah, we've hit the stunner multiple times, but we haven't touched the fight of the night. We should reverse the point values.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, okay, so my Friday the night pick for this event is Pyle and Mina. I think, there's some other options there. There's some other probably likely stand-up battles, but I'm gonna go with Pyle Mina. I think Pyle's very rarely in a boring fight, and Mina likes to just throw bombs. So that's my pick.
I'm going with the main event. I struggled. I looked through the card. I didn't want to pick your fight. But I'm going to go with the main event. Alvarez is always in, solid fights. Dos Anjos is going to bring the heat, and I think it's a solid fight for 5 rounds.
All right.
Excuse me. Our next bonus pick of the evening has nothing to do with the scoring. It's just kind of a fun thing that we do. It's called the bathroom break fight of the night. What this fight means is if you go to the bathroom, you're probably going to have a better time in the bathroom than you do watching this fight. I
never know what you mean by that. You always that's the way that you describe it every time.
I'm going to have more fun sitting on my phone or dropping a deuce than watching this fight. I'm going to be entertained more by doing that than watching this fight. That's what I mean.
Gotcha. There are multiple connotations there. I just want you to be aware. I just want you to be aware of that.
Get your mind out of the gutter, dude.
All right.
Anyway.
What's the bathroom break? You got a pick for that yet?
Yeah, I just did. Where the hell was it? You go first.
All right. Mine's going to be Arantes and Sanders. Felipe Arantes. Like I said before when I broke down the fight, he's dynamic and he could make the fight exciting, but he's too willing to grapple. And I think Sanders is just he's more or less the definition of lay and pray. It's kind of harsh, but that's kind of what he wants to do. That's how he gets the win. So I picked him to win, and that's how I think he does it. So that's my bathroom break.
I'm going to go with Munoz and Doan. I think both these guys are going to try to take this fight to the ground. It's going to be boring as hell. So I'm going Munoz versus Doan.
All right.
Our next pick. What's our next pick? We doing the lock of the night?
Oh, yeah, lock. Wait. I forget that?
No.
Lock. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. So my lock is going to be Dos Anjos.
Oh, imagine that. You get first pick. That's cool, dude.
Yeah, man. I'm taking it this time. He's not the biggest favorite on the card, I don't think, but he's close to it. There are a couple of guys, Duffy and Vicente Luque are both bigger favorites than he is. Anyway, so but I like Dos Anjos pretty big here. I think that Alvarez probably doesn't have a whole lot to ways to threaten him. I think it's kind of a bad matchup for Alvarez. So I'm picking Dos Anjos.
All right, I'm between Luque and Joban. I think I'm going to go with my boy Alan Joban in this one. I think he's a lock to win this fight.
Nice.
All right, finally, the Stonewall stunner of the evening, the most exciting pick of the night. You guys know what mine is. I say Mitch Clark is going to eke out a decision over Joe Duffy, who's the biggest favorite on the card.
Good
I
stuff.
think-
Yeah, well, that is definitely.
I think he breaks down Joe Duffy's lead leg, takes him to the ground. Even if it's a boring fight, lay and pray, but I think Duffy loses that fight against Clark.
All right, I'm gonna say, can my stunner be Dos Anjos finishes Alvarez in the first? Is that legit?
Yeah, I'll ride with that. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I picked him to go out in like late second, early third, but if RDA was able to get Cerrone out of there in like a minute, I think he could definitely has the potential to do the same thing to Alvarez. Alvarez is definitely is a gamer for sure. Like I said, he's kind of a bad matchup, and this is a stunner. Let me see here. I'm not seeing odds to finish in the first. Oh, Anjos wins in round 1, plus 350. So yeah, not likely necessarily.
You let me get away with a few questionable stunners. I'll let you have this one.
All right, sweet.
That's actually not too easy. I mean, the first round over Eddie Alvarez, that's a pretty big stunner in my opinion.
Okay. Let's plug ourselves real quick before we wrap up. Sound about right? Is there anything else?
No, man, that sounds good to us. Sounds good to me. Follow us on Twitter at Daily Fantasy Knockout. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can get the podcast on YouTube. We broadcast live every time. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud. Where else are we?
Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever podcast app you use, we're on there probably. Although I probably need to go back and try to get us on Google Play. I think they do podcasts now, and I don't think that we're on there yet. Maybe.
Subscribe to us, like us. Please leave us comments. Follow us on YouTube. We're trying to make this podcast as solid as we can. We're working on some things on our end to up the production value. Follow Josh. He has a blog, rotogrinders.com. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so if you do opponent search, my username on there is JDS86. You can find my blog that way. It's also called Daily Fantasy Knockout. Sometimes I'm probably not going to be able to get into it very much for these cards because there's just so much, but sometimes I go into like a more of a not a statistical analysis. I do use stats a little bit, but kind of like go a deeper dive into stuff that we might get into on the show there. So, but also you kind of, just another way, if you can't listen to the podcast, it's another way that you kind of get our picks is from the blog there. So follow us on Twitter. I'm at Stonewall MMA. Drew, yours is Houdini 16. Is that right?
At WHODEANY16. At Daily Fantasy KO. Daily Fantasy Knockout at gmail.com. Subscribe, like, leave us comments. Anything we could do better, what you guys like. Send us questions to our email. We have a couple emails, but we're going to save them for tomorrow's show because that's all we have for UFC 9 or Fight Night 90. We're coming back at you guys tomorrow. I believe we're going to do 200 tomorrow.
Tomorrow being Wednesday.
Wednesday. Correct. We're going to come at you Wednesday, July 6th with the UFC 200 card. It's a huge card. Josh and I have been working on it. We're really excited for that. We're going to wait in the Ultimate Fighter finale because of DraftKings hasn't released everything until the show is over. So tune in tomorrow. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Send us your emails. Follow us on Twitter. And for Stonewall Stillman, I'm your host, Drew Dean. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Good luck this weekend or on Thursday, and we hope this podcast helps you guys make a few dollars. Peace.
Peace.